I want all of Philadelphia. I want all of America. I want the whole world to see me destroy this man after 2 short rounds. Because after this fight, he's going to have to donate what's left of his body to science, but there won't be much. That I can guarantee you. Here's a look at the new Starace Rocky II Apollo Creed 1/6 scale collectible figure. World Heavyweight Champion Apollo Creed gives the no-name down-on-his-luck boxer Rocky Balboa a chance at the big time in an exhibition match that turns into a fight Creed never expected. This Apollo Creed collectible figure features a head sculpt with an authentic likeness to Apollo and has movable eye feature. He comes with interchangeable hands, boxing gloves, his signature American flag boxing shorts, the American flag hat, and a sleeveless coat that Apollo wears entering the ring. Just before he trades blows with Balboa, let me go ahead and first thank the folks over at Starace that were kind enough to provide this sample of new Apollo Creed 1/6 scale figure that we can have a look at in this review. Not only did they provide Apollo, but they also provided the deluxe version that's going to come include with the training outfit as well and the sparring helmet. The figure, though, online is slated to release around December 2023 to February 2024, and the deluxe version, at least here in Canada, is going to be $436.25. I'm going to as well grab the tape measure and see how tall the figure stands. First in inches, Apollo Creed's going to be about 11 3/4 of that, or the figure's going to be about 30 centimeters tall. First, to come include with this Creed collectible, the figure comes included with an oval-shaped display stand. It's a fairly shiny-looking display stand, so along with that goes the problems of leaving behind fingerprints. I can't imagine how many I've already left behind. I've done my best to kind of wipe away some of these settled fingerprints, but of course, every single time you're going to be picking up this stand, you're going to be having to go back and kind of wipe this away. Attached onto that, of course, you got the adjustable neck clip, and then on the top of it is a cradle, of course, that will support and house the figure when you have it on display. One touch of detail I really appreciate is the fact they took the time to print Apollo Creed, the master of disaster. And of course, you can display the figure along with the display stand. Now, being that this is the deluxe version of Apollo Creed, not only do you get yourself his ring attire, but you also get some training attire that the figure can be wearing as well. Eventually, we will get to dressing him up wearing this outfit, but I wanted to first show you guys the things that he come included with. Apollo Creed t-shirt, first of all, is one thing that you can wear when he's training. So it has down below, of course, it's got a picture of Apollo Creed in the middle, but down below that, you've got Heavyweight Champion. It's a fairly well-stitched shirt. And of course, this will fit over top of his rubberized frame. This figure, by the way, is seamless, so it's not going to have any visible joints. I like the idea from a seamless look that it looks more realistic. Of course, the problems are also going to go along with that. Visible joints are always the easiest to kind of know where exactly you're going to be bending the figure, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. But yes, I do like the idea that they included the Apollo Creed shirt, and to go along with that as well, somewhat of a matching pair of shorts. Mostly done here in a stitched white fabric, and they've got stitched down the side some stripes of pink. And this can go nicely then along with the shirt. Again, we'll dress him up more in a moment. Some socks, although they're not completely finished socks, they're only really just finished from the top part. So when you are wearing, for example, not you, but when Creed is wearing his boot, for example, you only really need the top part of the sock to be sticking out. So there's no real reason for Starace or any other company for that matter to give you a fully sculpted sock or fully stitched sock, because you're only just going to have to fit that around his frame anyways. Comes included with those, and as already looked at, he comes also included with a pair of white boots. For me, at least, I would probably display Apollo Creed, honestly, with more his ring gear, with his more now famous stars and stripes. But I do appreciate, of course, the idea that a company would have given an option like a deluxe version. Again, if you wanted to get the standard release, you're essentially getting all the things we're about to have a look at. If you, though, want to venture into the territory of getting the deluxe set, the deluxe set is basically going to come include with all these things. The boots are nicely sculpted here in plastic, adding a little wash in that as well. It helps to bring some of the details out. The stitching on the laces, for example, look fairly realistic, even though it's really molded here in all plastic. The bottoms of it, though, don't look as realistic. I would imagine this would be what normal boxing boots would look like. Of course, printed on the bottom of it is something that you may not have normally printed on the bottoms of the boots, but all in all, nice-looking footwear that's going to be fit around him. One other thing he also comes included with, while still sticking with training, he also comes included with some taped-up wrists, or taped-up hands. I just dropped, unfortunately, one of them. They're essentially just plastic molded hands, but then they've gone in and actually taken real fabric and wrapped them around the wrists. The hands themselves do look like he's ready to spar and train. And I really like that the additional touches of detail, that they didn't simply just sculpt the hands and paint the hands where the fabric would be. No, they actually did spend the time and commit the time to wrapping it around in fabric. I've got the other one just on the floor. I'm going to pick that up more in a moment. And then also to protect his groin. Apollo does actually have himself the groin protector. I don't know if that's the actual term for it. I looked online and most of them are just usually called boxing groin protectors. That's basically what it is. So while he is wearing, for example, the shorts, the groin protector will then fit over top of it. All of that stuff we will be getting more into in a moment. On to more than the, I guess one other thing we should also look at as well. The figure comes included with a swappable head sculpt, and along with that also comes included with this sparring mask, or the sparring helmet. The helmet does fit over top of his head, but it's not just a case of fitting it over, because of course that would run the risk of scratching the plastic and the paint. Speaking of the paint though, the alternate head sculpt that comes included with Apollo Creed is quite good. The additional touch of one thing I really like is that they added little dripping beads of sweat. Can you see that on the top of his forehead? That would be certainly something I would love to see on a figure, and I'm glad to see that Starace went as far as adding those little things, the little nods, that things you would see in the movie, whether it be even in the movie or not. Anybody that's sparring or practicing in boxing would start to develop sweat, and I'm glad to see that they actually took the time to include that. I mean, really, you could also use this head sculpt just for regular display of Apollo with the ring outfit that he wears right now. I mean, obviously, he just has a more neutral expression right now, but again, if you wanted to change it out to this head sculpt, you can easily go that route as well. But going back, though, to the training helmet, instead of actually fitting it over top of his head and running the risks that go along with that, what you do instead is that you take the front half and the back half and you separate them. It still stays attached in the middle, and then you'll take the front half and you'll fit that around his face. And then you'll take, of course, the back half, and that fits around as well. I'm a little less worried about this scraping the paint, especially the way that this fits around his face. And again, it just fits around like that, and then you're going to go ahead and take the hole that's provided on the bottom of the head and just fit that onto the peg of the body. Changing out the heads, though, we'll get more into in a moment. Again, we'll just kind of plug everything in place, plug that all in place, and that looks really good. You can see as well, they've painted Apollo there on the front. It's a really, really nice little additional piece to go with. So really tempted I am to actually get a second one of these Apollos, so I can actually have one displayed with his training outfit, and then one displayed with more his traditional looking ring outfit. The ring outfit has several things included that you may not see right now on the figure itself. Right now I've just got basically closed fists that don't have the gloves. Now, the gloves are separate, but when you get the figure first out of the packaging, in fact, actually the gloves are already attached. You can see down below, everything that he owns has his name on it, so you've got Apollo on the bottoms of both his gloves. And, you know, to be really honest, like, the gloves themselves, I know they're plastic, but they actually look like they're made of fabric. The stitching down below is, again, well handled. The paint applied to both of these is actually really good as well. There's a little bit of additional darker red that they've added in there, so it does, again, to look at it, you'd swear really that these were actually made of fabric. We'll put those to the side. The figure also as well comes included not only with his top hat, but also as well his jacket, something that we also will see in Rocky IV. Rocky IV for me is my favorite all-time Rocky movie. What's yours? Let me know down below in the comments section. But the jacket is, again, something that's going to go over top of his existing frame. I already took the liberty, in fact, of actually taking the jacket off at the beginning of this review, but when you get him first out of the box, the jacket is already on him. The jacket does have the collar, of course, that does have some little bit of glitter. The glitter, unfortunately, has now found its way all across Apollo's body. But you can see there's some really nice glitter, some additional stars and stripes that add in, and even little strands of fabric that he has also on the ends of his sleeves. Really nice way of displaying the figure. Now, to get this actually on his body is a little harder to do. First of all, the hands, I will go ahead and just remove those for right now. Bring the arms as back and as comfortable as you may feel they're going to be. I mean, this is, again, a rubbery framed body. So, again, just be careful when it comes to putting his jacket on. I did, though, want to start the review by having his jacket off just because, again, like, depending on how you're going to be displaying the figure, I don't know if I'm going to go the full extra mile of having the figure displayed with his jacket, but I did want to show you guys what it looked like first without it. Sliding as best you can over his arms. You might find while you're doing this too, you're going to get it kind of stuck around the sleeve area there. Just bring it up on one side, and then we'll do the exact same thing then on the other. Unfortunately, by having a rubber frame body, it means also things like fabric really stick to it. So you might find there's a little bit of resistance, for example, when you're trying to get the jacket over top of Apollo's body. But just keep continuing to work your way up it. And then once you feel you've got it far enough up there, of course, you're going to want to fix the collar as well. I don't have it all the way up there on his one arm. I think I've got it all the way now on it. Let's just bring his arm back down and fix the jacket accordingly. I don't have it all the way up there. It certainly started a lot cleaner than where I've left it off right now. But again, like the jacket just basically fits over top of his frame and then just kind of pull it across. The problem, though, with Carl Weathers is the fact he just had a very large torso. So right now, I may be just rushing right through getting the jacket actually on him. But the jacket does look good. It just may require a little bit of fidgeting to actually get it properly onto his body. Just because, again, like if you look at the actual rubber body, fabric is very prone to sticking against it. Now, of course, along with that, the figure does also include a hat. The hat is a all fabric material. It's stitched fairly well, but I will honestly say, though, getting it on his head, I feel like the hat is way too big. I worry also as well with this also being so close in quarters. If I'm putting it on his head, for example, it does fit okay, but I feel like it's maybe a little too big. And I certainly worry also as well that not only is it big, but also that it could potentially flake or chip some of the paint that's on his forehead. I think the head sculpt is honestly too good to run any risk at all of having that top hat, for example, damage any bit of the paint that they've applied to it. So I might just end up leaving the top hat off. I mean, again, I just kind of feel like the top hat is maybe a little too large for the figure's head. I mean, proportionally, he fits okay with the rest of the body and the frame of the figure. I feel like the top hat is maybe just a little too big, though. Now let's go ahead and add the boxing gloves, for example. Now, if you were to say, look at the arms are rubbery. So again, like everything, all the joints at least are sealed inside. When you get, for example, the ends of his arms, because again, like this is a rubber body, instead of dealing normally with plastic posts, what you're getting instead is metal posts. So you have to then plug on just like that, the boxing glove, and we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. You know, I will admit, while I haven't done the greatest of jobs of getting the jacket actually on him, it does look a lot nicer, I feel, to present the figure with the jacket than maybe without, and I might just end up doing that. Of course, further from that, the figure does also have the trunks that match still the stars and the stripes, so you got some nice additional stars down below and the stripes, alternating the colors of the white and the red. Spinning the jacket, by the way, all the way around, I see maybe where the problem was. It got a little stuck right there. There we go. Let's just fix the jacket so it looks a little bit better and a little bit more appropriate. There we go. Yeah, the jacket does look good. I mean, I'm just going to have to try a little bit harder, I think, to get that around his actual torso, because it is a little more tighter. But yeah, I do really like the look of the jacket. Not honestly as crazy about really the hats, but I think the jacket does look good, especially to match the trunks that he's already wearing. I ended up taking the jacket off just because it'd be a lot easier for me to show you guys the work that the talented team behind the scenes at Starace actually sculpted into the very large torso here for Apollo Creed. Going back, though, to the head sculpt, this is the defaulted head, and I would say overall, I think it lends very well a likeness to not only Apollo Creed, but Carl Weathers as well. The sculpting on the face, whether you decide to go this route, or you wanted to go, for example, with more of the sparring head sculpt, if you are certainly planning to display this guy with one of the Starace Rockies, for example, this may be a better suited head sculpt just because, again, it looks like he's in the middle of a fight. But I think both head sculpts are equally well handled. Painted really good, too. Now, because, of course, the body is going to be a rubber body, the head sculpt is pretty close when you look at it and you compare it, say, for example, the neck that's below it. The body, of course, just by the material alone, looks a little bit more matte finish to the more slightly shinier face that they painted on the plastic head. But I think it's pretty close. The body, again, already mentioned, is going to be seamless, so you don't see any visible joints. It does lend well to the idea that, once again, it does look a lot more realistic. I'm just, again, from the school usually that I prefer bodies that have actually joints, something I can more visibly see. I certainly get behind why people love seamless bodies because it looks the most realistic, but I just, again, worried that down the road, if this doesn't start to degrade. And I don't think it's gonna. I mean, like, the material that they've used seems pretty good on it, but always, of course, when you're going to have this figure displayed, I don't know if I would always have the figure displayed, say, in a sparring pose. Like, now you can bring the arms forward, for example, and you can even equally bend the elbows to give him a good pose like this. I just don't know that long term, though, if that's not going to leave behind creases in the actual material. The material itself is quite soft, judging by, of course, by the way I'm squeezing his torso, for example. There is a metal frame that's underneath that. Again, we've already looked at the fact that when changing out the hands, there's these metal posts. But the same thing also is the case when you're changing out the head for Apollo. Just make sure the hands are in there. If we take the head off, for example, there we go, you'll see that there's not only a very large post, but inside the post is a metal plug. When you are putting this, for example, if say you want to change the head sculpt to this head instead, I find that you really have to kind of hold on to the neck because he has not only a ball joint here, but he also has a post down below that moves in the area of the neck. So you kind of have to really hold on to this when you're putting pressure against the head to pop the new head in place. If you don't, I've noticed the few times that I've tried to attach the new head, it ends up kind of jerking the neck forward. And I don't want to cause any damage to the peg system. So again, we're just going to carefully, I say carefully, I'm going to apply a fair bit of actual pressure to get the new head sculpt in place. It does eventually get on there, but again, the whole time you're doing it, this is prone to very much shifting around on you. So again, we're just going to kind of twist this in place. I would certainly recommend, though, if you're having problems to get the head in place, like I have had problems with the head, what I did do earlier leading up to this review, I might in fact have go back and needed to do it again. But I ended up heating the bottom of this with a hairdryer. Not hot water. I didn't want to use hot water this time around. But I ended up using, though, a hairdryer just to help soften the plastic a little bit. With the little bit of time now that has elapsed with me looking at the other things that are on the figure's body, the plastic unfortunately has cooled on the head, so it's going to make things a little bit harder. It's essentially going to be looking like that when it's all said and done. I think just because this one has the larger socket, just because it's spent more time on the peg, we'll probably put that head back in place. Now again, that fits just in place. There we go. That's really what you want to have happen. So I might just even go back and heat this a little bit more with the hairdryer, soften up the plastic. I feel honestly like they could have used a different system to attach the head by, instead of the post that they ended up using, maybe a slightly smaller post probably would have helped aid getting the head properly attached in place. Again, the two head sculpts between the two. Looking, though, at the rest of the figure's body, overlooking the fact he has all this additional glitter all over him just because of the jacket that he was wearing before, a lot of good sculpting went into the actual body. Now, again, it's all seamless, so you can see by the way I'm moving my hand, it's more of a kind of rubbery material that they have used. Again, like even in the instructions, it actually says don't go too extreme with the poses. So you may not want to have too sharp of a bend, for example, when you're always having the figure on display. I also will say too, I mean, from my own personal experiences of dealing with seamless bodies, a lot of it also has to do with the conditions of your collectibles. My collection doesn't have a lot of humidity, for example. Humidity, I think, is one thing that's really causing things like rubber, like latex, for example, to start to degrade faster over time. If you have decent conditions when it comes to displaying these figures actually will hold out a lot longer. I mean, the sculpting work that they put actually in there, there's no denying, actually, that's a really good build and body that they've given Apollo. Still, I would have preferred, honestly, if they had gone with more seamed body, where you could actually see the visible joints. I don't mind sacrificing the hinges where you can actually then see them, if it just means that I don't have to worry as much down the road that the plastic, or in this case, the material that they're using may have started to degrade. But the muscles that they sculpted in, not only to the biceps, the forearms, the shoulders, and again, a very large muscular back, is all really well handled here from Starace's team. Of course, down below, we've already looked at the fact he does have himself the Stars and Stripes shorts. Those are, again, well stitched. And down below that, of course, we have the continuation of the seamless body. Now, we will eventually, I'm going to start to take these all off. I'm not going to get too far down, of course, but I'm eventually going to change out the shorts. I'm going to change out the rest of the body when we get down to the final looks of the figure, so you guys can see what he actually looks like in his sparring outfit. But further down from that, of course, he's got himself the Stars and Stripes socks, and he's got himself matching color schemes of the white boots with some additional accents added in red and blue. It, again, is a really nice looking figure. Even though this is the deluxe version that Starace was kind enough to provide, honestly, I think when it comes to displaying the figure, if I was to say pick up this figure on my own, I would likely have gone the route of the standard release. Because ultimately, I think when it comes to displaying Apollo Creed, I'm more aligned, I think, the idea of actually displaying him with his ring outfit rather than actually his sparring outfit. Now, for the articulation on the figure, his head is going to be on a ball joint. We've already looked at that, so it does rotate all the way around, and it actually rotates fairly well. It moves up, and it moves down, and it moves back and forth as well. But in addition to that, he actually has at the base of his neck, as we've already seen, there's a hinge joint right there. So there's a ball joint that works also as well to move the neck back and forth, up and down this way. The only thing about it, though, is by putting the hinge joint where they did, it just means every single time you're putting pressure down on the head to change it, you're ultimately going to be probably pushing the neck as well in the process. Shoulders do come out, and I would safe to say that they're coming out at 90 degrees. But again, mileage may vary as to how long you really want to keep a pose like this. The arms do move forward, and they also do move back. There is what seems to be a swiveling working behind the scenes, but just again, based on his build, I'm not going to be messing around too much with that. He seems to be able to bend his elbows at a full 90 degrees. And of course, the way the peg system works, you can rotate the hands all the way around. The only thing about rotating the hands, though, is because they're plastic, and of course they're fitting over top of a rubberized forearm, every time you're moving it, you're going to feel like it's kind of sticking against the material and kind of tugging it along the way. He has an upper torso crunch, so you can move it back and forth, up and down this way. The legs do split out as they normally would do if you had even a seamed body. You can move the legs forward, you can move the legs back. You can, of course, bend the knees. They seem to bend, from what I can see, in only just a single hinge. But again, I wouldn't want to go too far the extreme any further past, say, 45 degrees. The boots also do rotate back and forth more the way they're just attached. There's really not much in the way of moving them up and down. But again, depending on how you really want to have the figure displayed, you're probably not going to be moving him any... He's a boxer after all. You're not going to be putting him in any crazy ninja poses. You know, again, it's a really nice looking figure. I'm still on the fence, honestly, as to why they went with seamless bodies. I get the idea that depending on who you really talk to as a collector, some really welcome the idea of a seamless body because it looks more realistic. My only thing really about seamless bodies is while they look fantastic, I haven't had any issues, but I certainly have heard issues from people, not necessarily from Starace releases, but other companies that have done seamless bodies. After a while, like that material starts to break down. Depending, of course, on your conditions as well of your collectibles. Now, all the other collectibles I've had where flaking normally would have been an issue on the faux leather or even seamless bodies, for example, on my Wonder Woman, none of that has ever been a problem when it came to my own collection, just because, again, like the conditions and whereabouts I live. I may not very well have any issues at all with Apollo Creed. It's a really nice looking figure, and I think they've landed on a really good likeness of Carl Weathers. Whether you decide, again, you want to go with this head sculpt, or again, if you want to go with this head sculpt for the training, or really, again, if he's in mid-fight, it's a really nice release from the folks over at Starace. As it did take a little bit longer than expected. Behind the scenes, in fact, I changed over Apollo Creed's ring outfit instead to his training outfit, so at least you guys could see what he looked like in final looks. Most of the figure by now has actually all been changed out. His ring attire of the stars and stripes, not to match any of his matching boots, are all gone in favor of white instead. The socks are also something that have to be changed. I mean, you don't really have to necessarily change them, but to get at least the movie accurate look, definitely I'm glad to see that they included as much as they did with this deluxe release. Now, even though this head sculpt is designed specifically for the training helmet that he wears, does not necessarily mean that you have to have the figure displayed with this head sculpt solely in his training mode. If you rather instead, and you have plans down the road to get another Rocky figure from Starace, and you want to have the two in the middle of the ring together, definitely an ideal head sculpt to go with, because you got a little more expression on Apollo's face, not to mention the beads of sweat they so meticulously sculpted and painted into the figure's forehead. When it is ultimately said and done for me, I'm going to be displaying Apollo Creed more in his ring outfit, just because when I think of Apollo Creed, that's the look, that's the direction I really more so want to go with. But I do appreciate the fact that a company like Starace would have given the option to collectors that if you wanted to go with the standard release, there's that option available. But if you want to go all out, all in, definitely go with the deluxe release, because then you can have Apollo Creed displayed in two different ways. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Once again, a big thank you to the folks over at Starace that did provide the sample of the brand new Rocky Apollo Creed 6-scale figure that we could have a look at in this review. If you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly would like to stick around for more, popping up also at the very end of this video will be a playlist of other things I've looked at for Starace in the past. So if you again wanted to go back and see some of the stuff that they're also known for doing, for a while they were doing the Harry Potter 6-scale figures and have had a look at pretty much the majority of that line. So definitely if you guys wanted to have a little more extra time to look at Starace stuff, check out that playlist that's popping up at the very end of this video. Of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.